Welcome to San Pedro Sula here in Honduras. My second stop in this country, and just a short stop. I'm only here for about 24 hours or so before heading off to La Ceiba to catch a ferry out to the islands. But I wanted to take a stop here in San Pedro Sula and have a look around downtown and check out this very famous city. Famous for a number of different reasons, of course. So I'm just down here in the main square of the city. I did forget my microphone today, however, so I apologize about the audio if it's not as good as usual. So I'll try and speak up and a bit slower. So, a bit about the background of San Pedro Sula. It is the second largest city here in Honduras. It is the largest city in Central America that is not a capital city. There is about 700,000 people or so here in the urban center, and then including the suburbs and the surrounding barrios, it's about double that, so about 1.3 million people. San Pedro Sula was founded by the Spanish in the late 1500s, though this area in the valley had been occupied for centuries prior to that with indigenous groups and those types of things. San Pedro Sula today is one of the largest transportation hubs in Central America. It is a big industrial powerhouse area, and of course San Pedro Sula cannot be talked about without mentioning obviously its history of crime and problems that it's had in the past. In 2009, San Pedro Sula was declared the murder capital of the world. It had the highest murder rates, the highest severe crime in most of Central America as well, and was notorious for many, many years. Things today, I would say, are definitely at a state of improving. I arrived yesterday on the bus after a few days in Copan Ruinas, which was a very different sort of experience compared to here in San Pedro Sula. That was much more of a laid-back sort of, small community with obviously lots of history there too, but a very different type of environment. So as I said, I'm only here in San Pedro Sula for a short period of time. I'm actually heading out tomorrow to head to the ferry to go to Utila Island, which I've heard amazing things about, which again will be a very different experience from here. So far Honduras has been a very wide array, I guess is the best way to put it, of things to check out. So we are just here in the Central Park Square. There is the Municipal Palace up here behind. We'll take a walk over and have a quick look at it. And then while we're in the downtown area, I thought it'd be kind of neat. There's a couple of museums here that I wanted to check out. Honduras used to have a very extensive train network, which has kind of fallen by the wayside. However, the central train station, which is just a block from here, so I thought I'd go check that out. And then there's also an archaeological museum here, which looks at some of the history. Obviously, Honduras is sort of on the southern frontier of where the Mayan Empire would have ended, but the history of the area goes back much farther than that anyway. Here's a quick shot of the Municipal Palace here in San Pedro Sula, dated 1939-1940. It has that very specific Art Deco look to it that you see from many buildings of that time. It's got a really nice, clock at the top with the city flag, and then just here behind it, you've got flags of all the different Central American countries, as well as the flag of the city. There's a mosaic here on the ground, just in front of the city palace, which is directly behind me. Very cool mosaic that probably most people don't even notice. There's the city cathedral is here, just on the far end of the park. We'll take a walk past there in a moment as well. I would say there's a very heavy, police presence here, obviously with efforts to try and contain some of the security for the city, especially this downtown area where, you get the municipal building, you've got, this park which is very well maintained, and twisted effort to try and keep at least the downtown core of the city relatively peaceful. I will say I haven't seen anything to this point that of the violence or any of the dangers that so often reported about San Pedro Sula. I will say I did look last night, and it has, in the last 10 years or so, seen a dramatic decrease in the amount of violence that was here. It used to be, like I said, back in 2009, and even a few years after that, it was either number 1 or 2 in the world, and it's now not even in the top 100. So progress is being made here. Honduras kind of has this, people have this perception, I guess, of Honduras that it's not a safe place to travel, at least certain parts of it, and many people include San Pedro Sula in that discussion. We're going to take a walk. We'll take a walk over by the church here while I go. So as I've mentioned before, I've been traveling now for almost 15 months through Canada, where I started back home, through the US, and then obviously down through Mexico, where I spent 5 months, and then down through, continuing on through Belize, Guatemala, El Salvador, and now here in Honduras. And the whole trip's been great. Been really, really, really enjoying myself, and it's great to be able to come and do this at my own pace, to come and see all these different places and check everything out. Let's take a walk down, as I said, towards the cathedral here. Nice little central park here though, and some shops and restaurants along the sides. There's a food court actually inside, right here. There's the municipal palace. So it's, lots of different opportunities to come down and check out this part of town. So we're even heading down here. As I said, we're going to head over here to the cathedral and take a look at it. And if you're in the mood even for some Pizza Hut, there's even a Pizza Hut here on the Central Park. Let's have a look at this cathedral. So this is the cathedral here in San Pedro Sula. This is the Cathedral of St. Peter the Apostle. It was built in 1949, and let's take a quick walk inside and have a look. This is a huge cathedral. Try not to talk too loudly, and obviously without my microphone I have to be even more careful. But beautiful church, lots of paintings and murals. We've got St. Peter, St. Mark, St. Matthew's, all up on top of there. And we're going to quietly take a walk past the altar area here. Some more of the murals here on the walls are, and the artwork on these are incredible. Again, I'm not a religious person whatsoever, but I continue to be amazed by some of these buildings and the work that goes into them. Here's a miniature of the cathedral itself. So we're just a couple blocks. There's the cathedral just up here, you can see. And this is the old national train station here in San Pedro Sula. There's not much left to see. I was sort of reading that there was a museum here at one time, but I don't think there's anything left now. You can definitely see like the old tracks are still running here through town, but there hasn't been a train in quite a long time. Just a shot of the front of the building here. So this train line and others like it were used up until as recently as about 2000 or so, slightly thereafter. This was primarily used for transporting lumber and other materials There was no passenger service to San Pedro Sula. There is a sign here, however, that's stamped and dated December 2010 with a plan to reactivate passenger trains, but clearly that never came to fruition. Beautiful old train station building here. Hopefully one day they'll do something with it, make it into like a historical monument with a museum inside, because it's clearly seen better days, which is unfortunate, but a cool spot to see nonetheless, especially with so many train lines making a comeback in other places, like what we've seen with Tren Maya in Mexico and beyond. You know, it'd be really cool to kind of see trains make a comeback. They're a great way for people to get around. So from here, we're gonna head back up the street the other way. There's another museum up there, and I want to go get a nice cold drink because it is a very hot day despite being overcast. So that Versailles coffee, which is just sort of off the square here in the church here, was really good. Lots of nice air conditioning inside, good cold drinks, and some snacks and stuff in there too if you're interested in that sort of thing. We are just going to head down this way a couple blocks to the next stop here in San Pedro Sula, which is the Museum of History and Anthropology of the Sula Valley. So we just made our way down to the Museum of Anthropology and History here in San Pedro Sula. And let's go inside and take a look and see what they've got. Alright, we are in the museum. It was 125 lempira for tourists. So that's like, I don't know, $5, $6, something like that. Well worth it to support a local museum. Nice view of the little area outside here. So she recommended we come to the top floor first and then work our way down. I don't think it's super big, so just a quick note here. It says about the Sula Valley, floodplain of the Ulua and Camelicon rivers, containing approximately 1,500 square kilometers. So here's just a reference map, and here's where we are, sort of here in this Ulua zone. So just looking at a bit of a closer map of the Valley of Sula. So here's San Pedro Sula, where we are now, and we're actually heading up sort of over that way tomorrow, but this kind of gives you an idea of the region. So you've got the Rio Ulua here, and then the Rio Camelicon here, so you get these two sort of river systems that encompass the area. So this sort of talks a little bit about, you know, the area and going from, you know, prehistory, 1500 BC, right through up to, you know, sort of more modern times. And as I had mentioned earlier, there was a large, you know, indigenous population here before the Maya showed up, before the Spanish then showed up after that. Some photographs and discussions on an archaeological dig that happened here in an area called Curuste. And they discovered this pottery that was here, and we're going to have a look at it. It's actually, some of it's displayed here in a minute. But after they took all the pieces, which they named the Venus de Curuste, and they took all the pieces that looked like this, and they put it all back together, and they wound up with this statue. So it kind of gives you an idea of what the thing would have looked like when it was complete, both the front and back views. This was uncovered here, as I said, in a place called Curuste, which is the archaeological site not too far from here. I'll show it on the map exactly where they found this. some examples of some of the different animals that were used for decorations and whistles and, you know, other ornaments throughout history here. And one of the ongoing most popular things, of course, in this part of the world is corn. And corn was first, you know, sort of the first record of it being domesticated was around 5000 BC. And here in Mesoamerica, 2000 BC or so, it became sort of the primary ingredient in most foods and became a big trade item throughout the Americas. There's some examples here of things that were made out of obsidian in the region. So they would take large obsidian pieces that they would find and then splinter them off and make things like arrowheads and blades, you know, things that needed to be sharp, needles, those types of things. Some of the pottery that was actually found here in the Sula Valley dates back to 1600 BC. So that would predate, you know, things like the Maya by centuries. And talks about, there's a sign here that actually talks about how detailed some of the pottery was in terms of its design, its color, its etchings and stuff, which was pretty unique to this area and far preceded a lot of the design that you would later see on a lot of the Maya carvings and pottery and things. This stuff was all happening here 1,000 years before the Maya. Some more example here, some sculpture that they found here between 800 and 400 AD. You know, talking about, you know, parts of entire bodies, figures. There's a figure of Olmec that is believed to have been what this statue here would have been. And then they obviously have more things here. On top of that, late pre-classic pottery, so 300 BC to 250 AD. And again, some of the design and colors and things on this stuff is similar to the Maya, but certainly predates it. They've even uncovered examples of stamps and things that were made to use for like body decoration or for stamping paper. So you would see some of them would be like a roll shape where they could roll out an ongoing design, or there would be things like this, which are about the size of a bar of soap, I would say, that would have had intricate designs and lines on them that could be used for other sort of decorations. It's a cool little museum. I wasn't sure what to expect, to be honest. You know, a lot of people don't come to San Pedro Sula for a variety of reasons. But I wanted to come and check this out because it was, you know, it's only a couple blocks from the sort of the main square, and yeah, it's a cool little spot. I would, if you're in town and you're looking for something to come check out, this little museum is pretty neat. Some more examples of some pottery, and then they've actually got the designs that were on the pots kind of spread out on the wall here, so you can kind of get a better look at them, which is kind of neat. You know, talking about the Mayan history, and that they did write down a lot of things, but unfortunately when the Spanish arrived, they burned most of those books. So there was only, I believe, 2 or 3 actual original codices still left in the world today. And that's it, after the thousands and thousands and thousands of them that would have been written over the years. And so they got a couple examples here of what these would have looked like. So this is actually a book of codices, and it was actually a spillage of these books, which would have had pictures and stories and so much history that's been completely lost. I'd love to see one of these codices in real life. I know that they're scattered around the world. I believe there's one in Paris, and I think the other 2 are one in maybe in the UK and there's another one, but yeah, it'd be really neat to see these in person, just to see what's left of the originals, because they look like they would have been beautiful books at the time. And then of course a small replica of one of the boats from when the Spanish first arrived in the late 1500s, mid 1500s, and so came to an end for most of that Mayan and pre-Mayan, pre-Columbian history. And yeah, it's good that, you know, this kind of museum is here. Again, I'm the only person here, so come by if you want to come and check out a place on your own. But it's a great place to come and kind of see, you know, that history that continued on in other parts of Central America that are, you know, sort of less popular, I guess, today. Some of the examples, there's actually an example of a house here, of what a house would have looked like when the Spanish first arrived. Common home, most likely. And there's a painting here of the village. And then some examples of the Spanish gear that they would have arrived in, with the swords and shoes and metal boots, and of course guns. And you can see why the indigenous tribes were so easily overcome, if not by religion, then by force. So in 1536, the town of San Pedro Sula was initially founded under a different name. I'll put the original name here on the screen because I forget what it is at the moment. It struggled quite a bit under Spanish control through various skirmishes with the locals. Obviously things like the weather and things like that made things very difficult to establish a colony here. The Spanish obviously were involved in the slave trade at the time, so they would bring slaves to help develop the towns and the villages in the area to try and establish a foothold. But they struggled for a long time, until the 1700s really. There was barely any sort of Spanish evidence here. But as with everything, over time, eventually they did grow and establish a foothold and become the city of San Pedro Sula. And you can see here that they're going through in the process of looting what was here and setting houses on fire and destroying what they didn't want. These paintings are really good at doing a good job of telling the story as time progresses here. So looking at this painting, so this says this is between 1690 and 1745. So you can see obviously more domestication, more Spanish influence, those types of things are happening. This painting here is the fortification at Omoa, which is not too far from here. This was a Spanish fortress that was built to help fend off attacks from pirates, attacks from indigenous tribes. There's a plan here that shows the fort design, which is always kind of the same. And then now we're into the early 1800s. Again, trade has been established. You've got homes built, domestication of cattle, those types of things are all happening. So it took a long time, 300 plus years, to go from first contact to being able to establish a city. By the early 1800s, there was a independent movement for the region from 1821 to 1865. There was an independence movement for the country of Honduras. Then it sort of enveloped into that Federal Republic of Central America. It sort of became a European Union of sorts for Central America, where the individual countries were in a team together. Only lasted a few years, unfortunately. And then after that, you get into things like the train stations, and the train lines start being built in the late 1800s. There's some pictures here of the San Pedro Sula train lines. And then from there, now we're really getting into sort of the more modern history, the early 1900s. There's a whole section here showing different technologies, things from homes, clothing styles. And then we kind of wrap up in this last section here. Again, more modern day, recent history, 1900s history. And they actually have some examples here, some of the different early days coins and paper bills. And like many places, initially it was the individual banks that would issue their own notes. So here's an example here, El Banco Atlantida, which is a bank here in Honduras. And then you've got the Central Bank of Honduras. And then as time progressed, it became all the Banco Central. And then examples of all the coins, starting back as far as 1773, which was originally a Mexican real coin. And then it looks like the first Honduran coins were 1857. Anyway, that's a quick walkthrough of the historical museum here in San Pedro Sula. I would definitely recommend it if you're looking for something to come and check out here in the city. It's only a couple of blocks from the main square there where the cathedral and stuff is, and it's a really cool spot. Lots of history, lots of information, lots of it in Spanish, so take your time if you want to do translation with your phone or whatever. But a wealth of information here about a town and a city and an area that a lot of people aren't familiar with. And now that we're finished with the walkthrough at the museum, there's actually a restaurant here out back, so let's go check that out and get a little lunch. So this is just another shot of that park we saw from the inside of the museum, and the restaurant's just down here on the right. So I'm just here at the Ishim Cafe, which is just a little spot here outside the museum, and ordered some tortilla soup, which is absolutely delicious. Comes with a little side plate with chicken and rice and tortillas and onions and avocado and everything, and you just kind of mix it in as you go, and the broth is unbelievably delicious. So if you're gonna be in San Pedro Sula and you come in and check out the museum, please most definitely come check out this place. So that soup was delicious. They have a set menu every day, so they have 3 or 4 different dishes they can provide. I just went with the soup, tortilla soup, because I didn't want anything super heavy. It's kind of midday, and I usually have a big lunch, but I wanted to try out some of the food, and that soup was fantastic. It was $6 US or so, including the water that I had with it. So yeah, definitely worth a stop, even just to get something light to sit there and cool off a little bit in the midday humidity. So I thought from here we're gonna head back to the place I was staying at. I'll kind of show you that briefly, give you a little roundup on that, and then give you some final thoughts here on San Pedro Sula here in Honduras. So I'm just sitting here on the street at a place called Doña Maria, which comes highly regarded for their baleadas, which is a famous Honduran dish. And what it is you get a tortilla, and then they fill it with whatever you want. So in this case, I got chorizo and eggs, and it comes with refried beans and cheese and stuff as well. And I got 2 of those, and I got a tamarind drink to go with it. And really looking forward to it, because I love these things. They're delicious. These are delicious. Oh my god, these are so good. So this place was delicious. If you're in this part of San Pedro Sula, come down to Doña Maria and get a couple of baleadas, because they are unbelievable. It's a nice little local place, and everything's fresh. And it was 77 lempira, so like $3 for dinner, and that was awesome. So really good. So I thought I would give a quick review of the place I stayed at here in San Pedro Sula. I was here for 2 nights, last night and tonight. And last night I had a fantastic sleep. I slept like 10 hours, and it was awesome after a long day of travel. So this is the Guest House Dos Molinos bed and breakfast. And it is here in San Pedro Sula. We are about maybe 10 minutes from the bus terminal in a relatively good part of town. This room came with 2 beds. Obviously I only needed 1, but this was a good double-sized bed, and I had a fantastic sleep last night. There's a second bed there, which you can clearly see I just threw my stuff on top of, but that's been fine. Little table there I was working off of and got a bunch of my junk on, of course. Really good air conditioner up on the wall, kept the room nice and cold, and a good flat screen TV on the wall. And then in here there was the private bathroom, which was good. It is not a hot shower, but it is such a hot environment that you don't even mind. But shower worked great. Lots of water pressure and stuff in the sink. And yeah, it's a great little spot. Again, privately owned. It's a couple of women who own this place, and it had come highly regarded, and I can understand why. So included in a stay here are a couple of extra features. So first of all, this place was, I got it for 850 lempira per night. I'll put on the screen what that conversion works out to, which is maybe a little bit more than some other places that I've stayed at. However, this place includes 2 extra features. One is pickup and drop off at the bus station, which is fantastic because that would be like an Uber or a taxi would be $2 or $3 each way. And it also includes free breakfast. So in the mornings, the ladies downstairs cook free breakfast. It was like a, they call it like a desayuno típico, which is like a typical breakfast. So it comes with scrambled eggs and avocado and cheese and refried beans and tortillas and coffee. And that was fantastic. A breakfast would run you $5 to $7 probably. All considered, great deal when you get those 2 things added in. And they're actually taking me back to the bus station tomorrow morning so I can pick up my bus to head to La Ceiba so I can catch my ferry to Utila. So anyway, if you're coming to San Pedro Sula for any length of time, I would highly recommend this place. The family that runs the place is fantastic, super friendly, great for providing any information that you might need or, planning your next steps. And again, if you're ever in San Pedro Sula and need a place to stay, highly recommend it. So I thought I would give you some final thoughts on San Pedro Sula. So obviously this isn't a town that a lot of people come to. There's not a lot of tourist activity to do in this city. What you saw today with the museum and the downtown center and, a quick look at that old railway station. San Pedro Sula is primarily an industrial city, lots of transport stuff that goes through here. So not a lot to see here, but I'm glad I got here and I'm glad I got to see it for myself. After reading so much about San Pedro Sula and all the problems that it's had in the past and stuff, don't get me wrong, there are still plenty of issues in San Pedro Sula. It is still a city that has issues with crime and violence and those sorts of things, but it is getting better. It is a far cry from where it was 15 years ago, and I think 15 years from now it'll be even that much better again. It was really nice today to be able to go down to the center of the city, go down to the main square, check out the cathedral that's there, and check out that whole area with the museum, which again I had the place to myself. There was nobody else there at all while I was there. I've been able to get out and check out a couple different restaurants, the one there at the museum and then Doña Maria here tonight. So overall, yeah, it's been a good experience. I'm glad that I stayed here for a day to check it out. A lot of the things that I had read online are simply not true anymore, at least not in this part of the city. I did not go out to the outskirts of the city, to some of the barrios, but a good experience overall. Glad I came here. Hope you enjoyed this video as well, getting to see a city that maybe you would never think that everyone would, necessarily travel to or want to share on YouTube. I had no bad experiences here overall. Things went very smoothly. I understand my position as a male and, as a bigger guy and with the beard and the whole bit. That does offer me somewhat of a layer of protection, I suppose, when I travel. But having said that, it was fine. I had no real issues. My only recommendation to you is, as always, wherever you go, just be aware of your situation, I find that a lot of people travel and they have their head in the clouds and, or on their phone the whole time, or they're not really aware of what's going on around them. And that's when people tend to get into trouble. So just be, situationally aware of what's going on and be mindful of that and be respectful and friendly to people, and you'll get the same kind of respect and friendliness back. So that's going to do it from here in San Pedro Sula. I really hope you liked this video. I know it's a town that not a lot of people check out or necessarily vlog about on YouTube. So I thought it'd be kind of an interesting place to stop and check out for myself. If you did like this video, you want to leave a like or a comment below, that would be awesome. This is your first time here, please feel free to hit that subscribe button. It doesn't cost you anything, of course, and I appreciate every subscriber that I pick up. If you would like to support me further, there are some options for that. I have some memberships set up here through YouTube, starting at just $3 Canadian per month, so that's super cheap. They offer a bunch of extra perks. Some of the higher tiers offer things like early access to videos, members only videos and pictures, things like that from the road, and other things too. If you'd like to support me as a one-time thing, there are PayPal and Bitcoin links down below where you can donate through there. And I also have my merch shop, which is available both through here on YouTube and over on my own site at WanderBeard.com, where I post blog posts and I have information about the the gear that I'm carrying and a food blog and all those kinds of things on there. And it's always behind schedule getting that stuff up to date on that site, but I am working on it piece by piece as I go. So yeah, that's it. Thank you so much. You know, I am off tomorrow, as I said. I have a long travel day ahead of me, but I'm very much looking forward to getting to Utila out on the island and really checking that out for a few days. I think that's going to be a great time. And as always, life is short. Wander. And I'll see you in the next video.